welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. We still have people coming in. People will be coming in for a little while. Hopefully we can fit everyone who wants to come into the room. Thank you for your patience as we all pack in here. Welcome to the Solarize Syracuse Community Solar Education Workshop. This is our 9th one and our last one, and we've had great attendance so far. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, so my name is Jessica Aguilé. I'm Program Director for Alliance for a Green Economy, and we're one of the organizations collaborating on this project, Solarize Syracuse, along with several other community-based organizations here in the Syracuse area, and many volunteers, just concerned residents of Syracuse. We're all working together to build a more sustainable energy supply here. We have a great presentation set up for you today, a number of expert speakers. But before we get started, I'm just going to give a few logistics. First of all, the restrooms are, if you come out the door you came in and go all the way to the back of the store, there's a big sign that says pets. And to the right of that are the restrooms. We have refreshments here at the table. There is an info table in the back. All the information in the back is free. Feel free to take it with you. And you may have found when you came in a card on your chair, an enrollment card. I'm just going to explain what this card is. This is a card that you can fill out if you would like to get a free, no-obligation site assessment of your property to see if your property is suitable for solar and to see how much it would cost and how much you would save by going solar. And we'll be collecting these at the end. We'll be explaining more about this process throughout the workshop. We'll be collecting them at the end. You can leave them with us. You can also enroll from our website, solarizesyracuse.org. And our website additionally has the slides from today's presentation as well as video from previous presentations. So if you felt like we went too fast or you missed anything, you can go to our website and check out the slides and watch the presentation again. So with that, I'm going to introduce our speakers. First, we're going to hear from Pete Worth. Pete is a resident of Fayetteville. He went solar 2 years ago, and he's just going to talk briefly about his experience going solar and how it's worked for him and his family. Then Jessica Maxwell, who's a founding member of my organization, Alliance for a Green Economy, and also a longtime peace and social justice activist and community educator here in Syracuse. She's going to talk about our program, Solarize Syracuse, and how it works and what the process is and what we're doing. Then we're going to hear from Justin Williams. He is with our partner solar company, CNY Solar, and he's going to explain how solar energy works, the nuts and bolts of solar, how it's installed on your property, etc. And then last but not least, we will hear from Chris Carrick, who's Energy Program Manager at the Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board. They're a great organization here in our community, a resource. They're really our sustainable energy experts here. And they're collaborating also on Solarize Syracuse and putting in a lot of resources and work on this project. And Chris will discuss solar economics. He'll tell you about the subsidies and tax credits and financing and just sort of how it all works financially. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Pete first to just give the homeowner's experience here.
Thank you. Do we need to speak into this, Jessica, or we do need to speak into this? Okay. Thank everybody for coming out on a rainy day. My name is Pete Worth. I own a 4-bedroom home in Fayetteville. About 3 years ago, I went to the Town of DeWitt Energy Conservation meeting. I wasn't looking for solar, actually. I just wanted to, learn how to reduce the energy consumption in my home. And at that meeting, there happened to be some vendors in the hallway, and one of them happened to be Justin from CNY Solar. And I said, hey, could you just crunch some numbers real quick? Give me a rough and dirty estimate. So, he got his calculator out, bing, bing, bing. And I was just amazed at how inexpensive it was. I mean, my system, which is a 4.5K system, cost me $6,200 out of pocket. So, I'm sort of a methodical, somewhat, research, homework type of guy. So it took me about 6 months. I went out. There weren't any meetings like this. I didn't have the advantage to go to one place and ask a lot of questions and have it all explained. I found 3 contractors, narrowed it down to 1. asked them for references, called up people. You know, everybody that I spoke to, they were like great advocates, sort of like me. You know, you want to hear about solar? Let me tell you about solar. You know, and then it got to a point where my wife had concerns about how will it look on a roof, so we actually went out and we visited a site and we looked at the panels and signed a contract and had them installed. You know, what drove me, quite honestly, was I believe in climate change. My father taught biochemistry at St. John's, so you know, science makes sense to me. Medical science is the reason my wife is alive today. 2.5 years ago, she needed a stem cell transplant. You know, if it wasn't for advances in medical science, Jane would probably be dead today. So climate change, I follow it. You know, and I think it's a real serious issue. To give you an example, 2014, the federal government issues a national climate assessment report every few years. And, you know, let's forget about all the projections into the future. Just look back in time in the data that's there. So this is, you know, no computer models or whatever. In Northeast, we've seen a 70% increase in severe weather events since 1958. You know, those are the hard numbers. It's real. It's happening now. This is something that's not going to happen 100 years from now. You know, it's taking place. That's what drove me. Okay. Suppose you have no interest in climate change, you don't believe it, whatever. Let's just take a look at the numbers. I mean, my system, it'll take about 10 years to produce the electricity, and my system will pay for itself. My panels are guaranteed to be about 90% efficient 25 years from now. So I'll have 15 years worth of free electricity. So just in terms of dollars and cents, it's, you know, it's the way to go. They've worked flawlessly. They have no problems. You know, they'll go into more details on it. You're hooked up to the grid, so if there is an issue, the panels are monitored 24 hours a day. In short, if there's a problem with any one of my 18 panels, Justin, the installer, gets an email, and I get an email. So, I mean, it's a fantastic system. I'll be available if you have questions. They asked me to not entertain them now. I think when we get into more Q&A later, if people have any questions for me and my system, my experience, you know, I'll be standing over there. But let me hand you over to Jessica. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Very quick announcement. Sorry, we're going to bring in a couple more chairs for people. We really want people to be comfortable, so just stand by for chairs. And we are, for the rest of the presentation, going to be taking questions as we go, so please do raise your hand if you have questions for Jessica or Justin or Chris.
Great, welcome. Thanks again for everybody for coming out. So I'm a part of the coordinating committee for Solarize Syracuse, and obviously you've heard some of the buzz about our project. Something got you here today. But it's important to us that people understand how we're working, what our goals are, and how we can work for you to make it work. So I'm just going to go through a little bit about what our model is and what it is we think we can help you do. So we're a community-based program. We're not making any money off of this. We don't get any kind of cut. We meet around a dining room table to do our organizing. We're people who care about this issue, and it's important to us. Some of us are interested in going solar, and we're interested in helping other people do it too. We're a geographic area that we've had a lot of people ask. We're slightly outside that area, whether we're flexible, and we wanted to explain how and why we chose that specific area. So what was important to us is part of how this program works to get you the better price is a volume discount. So we wanted to choose a significant enough area that we felt like we could get the population who would be able to go solar, that we could achieve those volume discounts. We wanted to include the city, but we know a lot of people in the city don't have the kind of property that's appropriate for solar, so we thought we should include a slice of the suburbs as well. So for starting out, we decided to focus on the city and the sort of 3 towns east of the city. So that's how we chose that area. And why we don't want to go larger right now is we're an all-volunteer committee, and this is kind of a big project to take on. It's the first time we've gone through this program. we want to make sure that for every person who signs up, we can really do a good job helping you get to a contract and go solar. So we didn't want to take off more than we could chew. We're hoping if things go well, we might be able to do another program next year. So if you are outside of our area, stay in touch. Let us know where you are, and we can hopefully take that into consideration if we do another round. In terms of, in addition to the cost, what else we hope we're going to address is that solar just tends to be kind of feel intimidating and complicated to a lot of people. Any home renovation would be, but solar may be even more so because you might not know anybody who's gone solar, and you can't just walk over to your neighbor's house and see how it works and how it went. So hopefully through this process, we're going to answer a lot of your questions and simplify the process for you, make it feel like something that you're ready to do. We're not the only one doing this. We didn't come up with this model. I think it's a great model. We can't take all the credit. It's happening all around the country. There's over 80 programs that have happened under the Solarize model. Everywhere from the West Coast to the East Coast, rural places like Madison County, which tripled their installed solar capacity with the Solarize program, Tompkins County, to urban areas like Brooklyn who've done it. So it's happening all over. We're part of a movement, and that's really exciting to us. Locally, you can see these are the organizations that make up our steering committee that have really been involved in the nitty-gritty planning. It's a pretty diverse group. You'll see up there organizations that are environmental in their focus, traditional sort of peace and social justice groups, but also faith-based organizations. We've found as we've been doing these workshops, we've had our last several events have all been standing room only, so we feel like we've kind of hit a chord, and there's a whole range of people for a diverse number of reasons who are interested in solar right now in this community. So just to review, the Solarize model has basically identified 3 main reasons why they think people aren't going solar, even though solar seems to make a lot of sense right now. The first one being, of course, that upfront financial cost. That is, it's a big investment, and anything we can do to reduce that barrier is going to help people feel like they can make that investment. So the 2 things we're doing on that front are anybody who signs up with the Solarize program, we've negotiated a base price with our contractor that's already about 16% cheaper than what the average person in this exact area got who went solar last year. And that's partly because we're helping them be more efficient. They usually have to talk to a lot of people, go out and do a lot of site assessments before they get one person to sign a contract. Hopefully by doing this process where we really educate people ahead of time, help them understand what makes an appropriate site, they don't have to talk to so many people to get that first contract signed, but also it comes back to our geographic area. When they're going out and doing those site assessments, they can hit a lot of people at once because we're in a tight area. So that's another reason for choosing a sort of concise area. In addition to that, we negotiated some volume price breaks based on how much installed capacity we get contracts for. As we step up, we will get additional price breaks. So that's 2 ways we're going to help reduce that financial barrier. The main way we're trying to address the complexity of going solar is really through these workshops. We're hoping that by having somebody who's gone solar, having the installer here, having our partner organizations available to really explain the process, answer all those questions that you've been building up in your mind about how to make solar work for you and whether it will work for you. We hope that we're going to simplify it and make it feel like something you can do so that you don't have to spend 6 months doing research like Pete did, which is, let's face it, that for a lot of people, this is the hurdle where people get stuck. They want to do it. They feel like maybe they could afford to do it if they could just figure out how to make it happen, how to get the subsidies and where to find an installer and what kind of panels to go with. So I hope we're going to answer a lot of those questions so that you don't have to spend the next 6 months deciding whether you want to go solar. The third thing is just this piece of inertia. We have a lot of priorities, all of us, that we want to do. We've come across a lot of people in these workshops who say, I've been thinking about going solar for the last decade. For some reason, you haven't done it yet. We don't want it to be another 10 years before you go solar, so we're putting a time limit on you. so it is a limited time offer. We've negotiated this price. You have to enroll, which means filling out that enrollment card that gets you the free site assessment, which means you will find out whether solar is, whether you have an appropriate roof for solar, how many panels you could fit, how much of your power that would offset, and what it would cost you. That's what you'll find out with the site assessment. And then you have to sign a contract by October 15th. So those are our deadlines. It's filling out the enrollment card by September 30th and signing a contract by October 15th. As I mentioned, we know we're not going to catch everybody in this round, but we've been doing these workshops for the last 2 months, and we really want to make sure that for those people who are ready to sign up now, we get those folks going and getting the installations done, and then hopefully there's enough interest that we'll be able to do another round of this and catch another group of people who are ready to go solar. So that's how the program works. Obviously, we're going to assume, since part of what we're doing is recommending an installer to you, that you want to know something about how we chose this installer. That's really the first thing we focused on once we came together as an organizing group. We took a look at what the other Solarize programs used for a request for proposals. We put one together. We sent it out to all 30 of the NYSERDA-approved solar installers in upstate New York because we wanted to get the broadest group of people possible responding. We got 5 really excellent applications in response to that. And through our selection committee, we narrowed it down to a top 2, did face-to-face interviews, followed up with references, and made our selection of an installer in mid-July. So the criteria that our selection committee was looking at was, of course, NYSERDA approved. That's the entity in New York State that's doing the subsidies. So you can't get the state subsidies unless you're using a NYSERDA approved contractor. Also NABCEP approved, which is the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. And that's also just important because we want that third-party guarantee of the quality of the workmanship that's happening. In addition, looking at their general experience, background, what kind of packages and equipment are they offering to their customers, general record of customer service, really being willing to work with our Solarize program. It's kind of a unique model. Contractors tend to be pretty busy people up early in the morning. A lot of our workshops have been evening workshops because that's when general public tends to have free time. So it's a big commitment that we were asking them to, and we really wanted somebody who could do that outreach and communication with the public that we knew would be really important for a successful program to happen. We also wanted to make sure there was a diversity of financing options, not just purchases, but leasing available, which is becoming more and more popular nationwide as more people become interested in going solar. And we wanted to make sure that it was a company that was connected to the local community. We're not just in it for the environment, but in general, we know that if we're going to engage in a big project like this, we don't want to go with somebody who's outside our community. We want to have that economic benefit retained locally. So, yes, go ahead. We do, and we'll cover that when we go over the quotes and what comparing the purchase to the leasing option looks like. So at the end of that process, we chose CNY Solar as our installer for the program. They're right from Canastota. They've been in business since 2009 with a really great Better Business Bureau rating. All the sort of approvals and certifications we were looking for. They hire from the local IBEW, which was really important to us. It means they can scale up if they need to, and they have really quality workers who are coming right from our local community. They've done a lot of projects in our exact geographic area, which means they're familiar with the permitting required and who they need to talk to in order to get things done, which is also really important for a contractor. They're offering 3 different panels, and we'll go over what those are, but it was important to us that we had a diversity because the foreign-made panels do tend to be more affordable, but we knew that for some people who would come to our program, that U.S.-made would also be really important, so we wanted to make sure we had both of those options. The choice will be yours. We're going to leave that up to you, which one you go to. And also that they had purchase and leasing options and really good warranties for both of those. CNY Solar also did the Solarize Madison project, so we knew they were already familiar with the model and that they were willing to work with it. So how our process works, we're really trying to make this as simple as possible. We've distilled it down to 5 main steps. So the first step we already did for you, that's selecting a solar installer to work with. What you're doing right now is step 2 to us. It's getting educated, answering your questions, participating in the community workshops so that you get the information you need in order to make a decision about going solar. Step 3 you could complete before you leave today if you fill out that enrollment card. That's what will start the process of you getting your own site assessment to find out how it applies to your property. And what's really important as part of that process, they will need a copy of your utility bill or that information, because in order to size the system, we have to know what your current usage is for them to figure out how many panels would you need, how many will fit on your roof, and how will that offset your usage to find out what kind of savings you're going to get. So that's a really key piece, that you'll have to get your utility bill to the company along with the enrollment form. The 4th step is that site assessment, and there'll be, usually it's 2 steps, looking online and at the utility bill to get a general sense of where's your property, what's the orientation, what's your usage, what's the size of the house, and then an in-person visit to the site to give a more detailed quote if it's looking good. And then the last step is making that decision to sign the contract that you want to go solar and having the installation done. And the installation is remarkably fast compared to the rest of the process. So what the time frame ends up being is, as I mentioned, tonight or this afternoon, you can get your questions answered and fill out that enrollment card if you want to. You can also do that online afterwards if you're not quite ready to do it today. Right now, the turnaround time is just a few days once you get them the enrollment card and your utility bill for them to give you that initial assessment looking at your home with an online mapping tool to just get a sense of the orientation and the size compared to your usage. And then if that looks good, they'll come out in person for the more detailed site assessment and quote. Once you sign the contract, everything has to go to NYSERDA for their approval because they're handing out the subsidies. They want to have an independent look at that, make sure it's a good legitimate solar project that's going to produce for you. That approval from NYSERDA can take up to 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how many applications they're getting from around the state. So that's the longest piece of the process. While that's happening, the installer will use that time to also apply for any permits that need to be done with your local municipality and to contact National Grid, because as was mentioned, this is a grid-tied system. Right now you all have meters that only run in one direction. They're going to put in a net meter so that your meter can run backwards. So that also will happen, and that's free, and that's a quick process, but obviously a really important step in the process for you. And once that's all done, the actual installation, you're looking at just 2 to 4 days. It's pretty quick as far as having work done on your house. And as well, if you're doing some kind of financing option, you want to be getting that paperwork done also while you're waiting on the NYSERDA approval so that we're ready to roll when everything comes back. Yes? Yes, things slow down a little bit. It, of course, depends a little bit on how much snow there is and how cold it is, but they do continue working throughout the winter. The good news is, as you'll see in our slides later, we don't generate very much during the winter because of our limited sun. So if your installation doesn't happen until spring, you'll still catch the best part of our year for production anyway. So this is just a review of those financial hurdles and how we're overcoming them with the base price, volume discounts. There is an extended 25-year warranty with both the purchase and leasing options, which is really important in terms of what's that long-term commitment and potential financial investment. And because we're working with the Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board, we can also offer guidance on other energy efficiency and incentives that are available. So, yes. No, this is it's not one of those pyramid schemes. You can get your friends to sign up if you think it's good for them, but actually I'm happy to announce that we have already hit, we had 2 steps built in, 50 kilowatts, over 50 to 100, and then over 100. We already have contracts for over 100 kilowatts, so we already can tell you that we're going to hit this lowest price tier. So you're kind of lucky coming in at the end. Some people signed up before we knew that, but we've hit it, and so you'll get the lowest price that we've negotiated. There was a hand in the back. Yes, all the technical questions, we're actually going to go over that in the installers portion of the presentation, so I'm going to hold off on that for now because we have some slides that will show you exactly what it will look like and how that will be impacted. Yes? Well, Justin will go over what the different components are that are installed, so I'll leave that because I think it'll be clearer when he shows his slides. So in terms of what we have available, you'll see over here the 3 panels that we're offering. The Trina up here is the more affordable, slightly less efficient. This is a foreign-made panel, so it would be the $325 a watt price over here. The Solar World is the U.S.-made, a little bit more efficient, just 5 cents a watt more expensive. Down at the bottom, the BenQ is a newer technology. It's a little bit more efficient again, and you can see a little bit more expensive over here as well. And you'll notice at the bottom there are a few additional things that could add fees to it. So if you have a really complicated or steep roof that's going to be difficult for them to work on, or if for some reason you need some additional work in order for them to hook into your electrical panel, that could be additional fees. But otherwise, this is the price you're looking at. This includes all of your equipment, all of the installation, everything is that price right there. And we'll go through a quote because you're obviously not installing like 5 watts, you're installing kilowatts. And we'll go over what a quote will look like for an average household and how that adds up. Yes? The only thing I'm aware of is that in the town of DeWitt right now it is not permitted to do ground mount or pole mount systems, only roof. That's the only thing that I'm aware of. Yes? I don't know specifically about that. I'm looking. Justin, do you know in historical districts in Syracuse whether there's any special permitting requirements? Okay. Okay, so we would need another approval for that to happen. All right, and that's the end of my section. I'm going to bring our installer up, Justin Williams from CNY Solar, and I saw one more hand in the front. Justin's getting up here.
This is a question about maintenance. We've been visited by one company that's recommended a lease because if our house gets hit by a baseball-sized hail, they automatically, everything is covered, they repair. If we buy this, then it's our baby. But under your lease panel, is that your lease program, is that an added expense or is that repair covered automatically?
I'm going to pass it up to Justin since he's our installer and knows their warranties really better than me. Thank you all.
I would replace your roof ahead of time. So before you do solar or choose to do solar, yeah. But if you choose to do solar, I would definitely replace your roof ahead of time. 10 years or younger is a good time frame for new roofs. If it's 15, 20 years, or even 12 years old, you might consider replacing it to save the cost. But for the insurance question, the lease is not an added expense for insurance. It comes with it. But even if you purchase a system, your insurance, homeowner's insurance, will cover any damage from hail, trees. So if you do a system and you purchase it, you call your homeowner's insurance, let them know, but most of them are all covered when it's fixed on the roof and it's a part of the home. So even if you purchase, you get the same benefit. So what I go over next is kind of how the system works, and kind of we'll start with the power in general and how power even comes. Right now from the utility company, the power plants where they're located, it comes from them. It comes down the lines, comes to your home when you turn your lights on, and then you actually send it back to them. It completes a circle. So you pull it from there, you use it, and then you send it back. So as losses involved, there's long distances, and when you do solar, you shorten that path from your roof right to your, say, first floor, second floor. The circle is much shorter. You get more efficient. You're consuming the power off of your roof and not pulling it from the power plants. And the way that the solar does it is you have, yes? Even on a cloudy day, it still works. So today, our panels and our systems are still running. And on a sunny day, like yesterday, it might be 100% output. Today, you might be getting 20%. And yesterday, we'll go over the surplus and how that benefits from yesterday to today in a few slides. But the way that the solar works, the sun comes down, it hits the panels, and when it starts to do that, there's little electrons on there. They start to vibrate. And we're able to knock one loose. It goes through your appliances, and it goes back to the other side of the panel. So it's a much shorter circle versus the utility, and then sending it to there and sending it back. But it's basic, little electrons, little balls. They bounce loose. They go through your appliances, and they go back. It's very simple. When the sun hits there, it's able to do that. So on a full moon night, you don't get any solar. So usually a good question. People want to know, on a bright moon, do we get power? There's no power. It's got to be from the sun. And then we have the panel. So the typical panel is to the left there. That's the actual size of a panel. That would be a panel that we put on your roof or on the ground. They all look like that. They all come in that size. About 40 inches by 65 inches is the physical size of a panel. Doesn't matter the make or model. That's roughly about the same size. The panels that we use for residential are 60 cells. So these little black squares, if you count them up, there's 60 of them there. So we call it a 60-cell panel. They offer 72-cell panels where it would be a little bit taller, just as wide, but it'd be about 7 feet tall, a few more pounds to it. But that's more for commercial when you use a 72-cell panel. So when you see solar and you go down the road, they're all 60-cell. And the way that they look would be different among manufacturers. So that's a Solar World panel, a Trina or a BenQ. They're going to look different with the lines that are here and the squares. And the two options that we have for the program are color. And when we talk about color, we're looking at the frame of the panel here. Right? That one's black, and the one I brought is silver. So you have a choice of a silver frame panel or a black panel. A lot of people like the black because then it kind of blends in better and it looks better at the end. And you're not just going to install a single panel on your roof. You're going to put an array. So when you put an array on the roof, it could be 2 to 30, 40, 50 panels. But you then would have an array located on your roof or on the ground. The typical size systems that are most common, residential, say 1 kilowatt to 25 kilowatt system for residential. Yes? They do not have to all be touching each other. It looks good when it's a nice rectangle system. I'll show you some photos of that. But you can put 10 panels here, and then if you have another section of your roof, 5 panels over there. They do not all have to be located in the same spot. And we'll go over location and orientation. But system size-wise, residential, 25 kilowatts, NYSERDA will still give you an incentive up to that system size. The utility will let you install a system up to 25 kilowatts for residential. Commercial is around, say, 1 kilowatt to 200 kilowatts. And NYSERDA will provide an incentive up to 200 kilowatts for commercial customers, yes. Size-wise, about 100 panels. It could power, depending on the home, sometimes 2 homes, because a lot of homes only consume maybe 10 kilowatt hours a year. So not typically would you install 25. Typical size for residential, more 5 to 8 is most common. For the commercial and residential, in these system sizes, it's an open enrollment through NYSERDA. So it's just an application. We send the application to NYSERDA, and they will fund the project under whatever the current incentive is at that time that they receive the application. The larger systems for commercial are 200 plus and utility size, so thousands of panels. There are grants for those. Those are competitive grants. So we write the grants, we can send them to NYSERDA and try to get the incentive, and that's going to be based on the system and the cost effectiveness if we get this funding down here. But for all residential and commercial, it's open enrollment. We can send them right in. If it's a business in the home, it's considered residential for NYSERDA purposes, residential for utility purposes, because you have a residential classification for a meter. When you do your taxes with your accountant, you might be able to claim a portion of that system as commercial if you claim a portion of your home as a business. So you might be able to get a benefit from depreciation on that side. When we talk about the panel that's sitting against the wall there is a 275 watt Solar World panel. So a single panel, 275 watts. A system we're going to talk about is kilowatts. So you're not going to install one 275 watt panel. You want to put a kilowatt or 8 kilowatts on your roof. So roughly maybe 30 or 40 panels. And that system in production is kilowatt hours. So we want to know how much power that system is going to produce for you for the given day, for the month, and for the year. So that's the number that you will track more is your kilowatt hours and how much power did we make. But you'll know how big your system is because that's just kilowatts. So there's 3 different values. The one that you're going to probably watch the most is how much power you made for that given day. And then the systems that we're offering through the program. The panels on the roof or on the ground, that would stay the same. They could be located wherever is good for the site. And then the rest of the system is what would be different. This is a solar edge inverter, and they come in 3 to 10 kilowatt or 11.4 kilowatts, depending on how big your system is. It tells us how big this box will be. The benefit with the solar edge inverter is you do get free monitoring. So you can watch it on your phone, you can watch it on your computer, you can send it as an email to people. But the biggest benefit are the optimizers. So underneath each and every panel, you would have an optimizer that would look like this guy here. So this would get mounted under the panel, under that panel, under each and every one. And this job of this thing is to fight against shading and to optimize each panel. So with the shade, we'll go over that slide, but it's very important not to have a system or put a panel in a shaded area. If you were to do a traditional system through a regular installer or a different installer, they may not offer an optimized system. They might just offer a string inverter. So up here, we'd wire 8 to 12 panels together. If a portion of that system were shaded, it would slow down the rest of them. So if one panel was shaded out of 13, all 13 of them would slow down because they can only go as fast as the slowest worker. With these guys, the optimizers, now we're running individually, one for one. So if one panel is shaded, the other does not, it doesn't matter to the other panels. And the second option that we're offering, the solar edge inverter would go away, and we'd have microinverters. They look very similar to optimizers. They're a little bit bigger. They're a little bit heavier because there's an actual inverter in this box, and this just has DC to DC optimization. But they look the same, and they do the same in production. The same amount of anti-shading efforts to optimize the system is exactly the same. But those are the 2 systems and a couple of components that go with them. Is there any questions on, I guess, the system? Yes? Correct. Yeah, so the microinverter would be here, and from roof down would be AC power. 240. Yes. The trunk cable, the stuff that's on the roof is all UV rated trunk wire, resistive wire. The stuff from the roof down is all in conduit and regular THHN, but it's in metal pipe all the way to your electric panel. It can go through the attic. We can go down the side wall. We can go through closets to get down to wherever the electric panel is located. We look at that per site on how the conduit would get back from roof to endpoint. It's in your electric panel. No, we're in 2008 code. We're not in 2014. 2014, you would need a disconnecting means on the roof. We're still in 2008. Nothing yet, because they don't know what the solar is. But yeah, with a DC system, there is no disconnecting means from the roof down. In this system here, the other benefit, if you ever had to shut this down, they only send 1 volt from roof down. 1 volt coming out. If you were to go with a regular string system that we're talking about, you're going to have 300, 400 volts going through your house that you can never turn off. So the other benefit of this system is for the fire, is to be up to 2014 code, so you can disconnect it downstairs. It shuts all power off to the roof. So this system here is 2014 compliant, even though we're still stuck in 2008 in New York State. The overcurrent protection is in the circuit itself. So they have 15 amp overcurrent protection per string. That is, for the microinverters, that's built into the inverter. And for the optimizers, there's fuses down in the inverter. No, because once you blow a fuse, you have to put a new one in. It's an actual fuse. Yes?
The weight of the panels, are they very heavy? Would we have to strengthen roofs?
For all homes, we do an architect analysis. Somebody will come in and we'll take all the measurements, send it to an architect to verify your current snow load of your roof, plus what happens if you add panels, are you still within the local area snow load? And he'll give us a stamp for that. Or he'll tell us we have to add collar ties or something into there to bring it up to code. But it's 2.5 pounds per square foot for solar. Yes. No, it's a part because we have to do it for almost every code around requires that. The analysis. Yeah, because some homes might need it, some may need nothing. Yes? We'll go over the lightning and the grounding of the system in a few slides. Yep. You should never have to shut it down. When you install a system, you turn it on. You never have to check it. If you lose power with solar, you still lose power because there's no batteries. So you don't have to go and reset anything. There's no yearly maintenance. If there was a fire, you want to shut it down. There's really no other reason I could think of why you'd want to manually shut it down. And then the idea of how it works, another question? Yes? Yep. We can go. No, we can go around the skylights. So we don't cover them. We can't cover any venting. Any pipes that come up through the roof, we can't cover any of those. We have to go around all items that go through the roof. Yes? It'd be nice to be able to have at least a manhole so we can get into there because we might run conduit through, but then it's also good so we can get the measurements of your current truss to be able to send that to the architect. So just something to take measurements, and maybe with your home we might run conduit through there versus going exterior. Here's how the solar works from beginning to end in a simple slide. You have the solar, could be on the roof, could be on the ground. It has to have an inverter. The inverter could be the microinverter or Solarize or an SMA, but you're taking the DC power, going to AC power, putting it into your electric panel. That goes throughout your home, your lights, your appliances. You don't have to do anything special. You don't have to rewire anything. We'll just connect it into your existing system. And then if you are not home and the sun's out, not today, but if the sun does come back out, we The solar will overproduce. It'll produce more power than you need at that given time. And when it does that, it sends it backwards through the utility meter. Your physical numbers go down. Everything tracks backwards, which is good. So this is your net meter. Yes?
I have a fund mine, I was thinking about $100 back that actually for that. So I'm going to use 2 meters to this one.
One. So your current meter, that little glass thing on the side of your house, they'll take that off and they'll put a different one in its socket. And it'll do the work of this. So it'll take that. Another question? Not a smart meter, just a net meter. So that'll track it backwards. Your extra power will go to the utility like a bank. Every day that you don't use all the power, it goes to them. They add up all the kilowatt hours that you send them as credits. And at night, when the sun goes away, you start to consume power more when you come back home. And you get the power back. So if you gave them 20 kilowatt hours for the day, they owe you 20 kilowatt hours before they can bill you for any power. So you're banking the power with them. At night, you're getting your solar power back. If you don't need it all that night, it's going to go to the next day, or the next week, or the next month. It'll roll, and that's the benefit of the net meter. You can take it with you, make all your power in the summertime, and the spring and the fall, and take it with you into the winter. Yes? It is the same rate. You're not actually selling it to them. So if you give them 100 kilowatt hours for the given month, they have to give you 100 kilowatt hours of power before they can bill you. So it's a 1-for-1. They're not giving you 6 cents and you're giving them 8 cents, or there's no cents. It's a 1-for-1, so it's a big benefit. It's better than selling. Yeah, you don't want to oversize the system. We'll go over the percentages of how big we're allowed to go in New York, but you do not want to put a system on that's 200% and try and get money from them. You can get a general credit from them after 12 months, but it's not going to be the same. It's not. They might give you 6 cents for your extra power that you didn't use after 12 months. It's not worth trying to get paid by them. Here's a couple ideas. Roof mount, what it might look like. If you don't have a space for a roof mount, or there's trees in the way, it's not a good orientation, ground mount might be an option. Or a pole mount might be an option if you have a spot for something like that. Something can face itself, and you can put it in the best orientation for solar. But those are the typical options, roof or ground. Yes? You wouldn't want to hang them vertically, because we make most of our power in the summertime, and when the sun is directly overhead, hitting the panels, it's going to be hitting the panels at a really sharp angle. It's not going to produce power. So your panel really wants to be 90 degrees to the sun to make the most power. So your best performance would be in the winter time when the sun's just really not out for us. Yes, if the panel was vertical. There is. And we'll go over the percentages of what winter does for us. Yes. There is. They say our latitude, but I like 30 degrees is optimal for a home. But if your home is 18 degrees or 10 degrees, we just match the pitch. If it's a flat roof, we do something different. But if it's a regular shingle roof, we match the pitch of what it is and the orientation. We don't usually kick them up to a higher pitch. So for our area, 30 to 45 degrees is ideal. 4 to 6 hours of sunlight without shade interrupting it. Square footage, roughly 90 to 100 per 1,000 watts. 5 kilowatts, roughly 500 square feet. So you can get an idea, if you know your roof size, roughly what could possibly fit up there. So your orientation, south, is the best. Can't put them on the north because it just doesn't do anything for us. If you go southeast, southwest, you might lose 10% because we're not facing true south. If you go east and west, you're going to lose 25% production because by the second part of the day, it's not hitting your panels. So you'd have to install more panels if you're facing east, maybe 35 panels, versus somebody that's facing south, they might be able to put on 28 panels to make up the same amount of power at the end. Yes. Yep, so we can put panels on a garage roof, we can put panels on a house roof, we can put some panels on the ground, some on the roof. They don't all have to go in the same spot. Yes. So shade is really important for solar. It's not a one-for-one. If we were 10% shaded, we only lose 10%. That would be great if it was, but if we have 10% shading, we could lose 50% out of the panel. So that's why the optimizers and the microinverters is a good benefit. So it's not affecting the whole string. It might just affect that panel that is shaded or has coverage on it. And then, yes. No. So you can go with a regular string system if you're wide open. The optimized system and an SMA string system is the same costs. There's no extra cost for optimized. Micros, it's a little different. But an SMA versus a solar edge, if it's wide open, you might get the same result. The panel and kind of how it would go on a shingled roof. You have the panels that go onto a racking system, which sits on an L-foot, and this would be your truss. We tie into every truss system every 4 to 6 feet. But this is the flashing that we would use for a shingled roof. This is another type, but it looks just about this big for that flashing that's at the bottom. That L-foot would sit on this little block that's right here, and this bolt would then go into your truss. So we don't just hook it into plywood. We actually have to find the trusses and put them into each truss. And again, our span, say from support to support, is 4 feet. We want to spread the weight out as much as possible to get our 2.5 pounds per square foot. We don't want to go 6 or 8 feet because we do have snow here, and we want to make sure everything can withstand the weight of the snow with the rail that we use here. This is one style ballasted system. So if it's a commercial building, possibly like this one, they could possibly go with a ballast mount. This one has an anchoring system, where the next one, instead of being anchored, it uses pavers, blocks. The blocks plus the panel and the racking is what holds it down. There's nothing screwed into the roof. It's held down by the weight of itself and the design of itself. There's no screws into the rubber roof, which is a benefit if you have a rubber roof or something like that. If you don't have a flat roof, don't have a shingle or a residential roof to put it on, but you do have an open spot to put solar, this is the pole mount. So this will be a little bit more cost than the residential because we have to put this cement in the ground here. The base is 36 inches by 8 foot deep, filled with cement. We have to put this steel vertical. We have to buy this racking and assemble that just to get the solar to sit there to face south. Yes? Depends, if you were to lease, then they have their guarantee on the regular install of the system. We have a 10-year parts and labor for systems that are installed. For a roof mount. So the wind, that's why we wouldn't put them up. So if your roof was 18 degrees or 20 degrees, we put them onto the roof, and the gap that you get from the system, if I can go back a slide, this gap that's underneath here is 4 or 5 inches. So not enough gap for wind to go under to lift the system off the roof, plus we're tied into your truss system. So instead of taking this system, and if you were a somewhat flatter roof, and pitching it up, now we're creating kites. Where the wind could hit the backside of that panel and have a lot of force to try and blow it off every day, we only have 4 or 5 inch gap. Yes. So this is a typical install for residential. It holds it down, but wind isn't much of an issue for the way it's designed. Yeah. Yeah, we match the pitch of whatever the existing home is. Yep. We'll go over those 2 slides too. Yep. They do. So we use these flashings. We do it in the way that's recommended, but we did a system for OCC that had some special roof on, but we had their contractor come over and verify the flashings were all installed the way that they were supposed to keep the roof warranty intact. The components here, everything that's on the roof is aluminum, but it's all grounded together. So everything has to be grounded for the code. So everything's grounded, all the grounds go back, and they have to be continuous, unbroken, all the way to your ground system of your home, the ground rods. So if lightning were ever to strike the home, it's just going to hopefully go right through the ground path that we provided of least resistance to get to the ground. What? For the wire? The copper. They are braided, solid on the roof, but braided down through. Yes? They're quite big. On the roof, we have to put number 6, which is a good size wire. It should never break. Even a squirrel or something shouldn't be able to chew through it. I guess we wouldn't know. There's no testing of it. Oh, no, you won't be able to step. It's all in pipe and conduit. It won't be accessible for you to damage. Yes. To get through. I haven't had anyone call us to say they've chopped into a DC wire, but if they were to get into a DC wire, that would be the last you'd see of that squirrel. Because that would be 400 volts. It would probably do some damage to them. So if they do it once, they won't do it again. So if you were to look for a site visit and you think you have the possible site for solar, one of the items that really helps us the most is your electric bill. This little chart over here gives us information on how much power you consumed in the last 12 months, and that's how we actually size the systems. So we'll take these numbers, we'll add them up, we'll come up with the system size, we'll look at Google Earth, see if that can fit on your roof. But the bill is very important, and also NYSERDA wants us to send them a copy of the bill, because everyone pays into the RPS SPC tax, and that's a NYSERDA fund. So that's where all the programs come from out of NYSERDA, is something that you've been paying into forever, so they want to make sure that they see that you have to be able to get the benefit of the rebate. So if you do solar, you'll be getting a lot of this money back. If you don't do solar, you'll just keep paying for everybody else's systems. So we take those numbers, we add them up, we come up to a yearly total. Even if you had an average, if you just told us an average of monthly what you spent, we can design a system off of that too. But we'll take this number, we'll size it for our area, our snow, our weather that we have, and give you a system projections of what it will do for you for the year. We're allowed to go up to 110% of this number. So we're allowed to go 10% more for your system size. And you got the 2 scenarios. We can go 110%, but do you have enough roof space to achieve that 110%? Yes. You are, currently. This one here, basic service charge not including usage. So this item, I can't get rid of. Because that's, if you use no power, you went on vacation for a couple of months, you're still going to owe them $17. The same with solar. I can't remove this item from the bill. Everything else from the supply side and delivery side is based on how many kilowatt hours you consume. So the more that we can wipe this away, if it's 50%, 60%, or even 100%, then all of these charges from $17 all the way down could go down proportionally based on your system size. So sites that are kind of what we're looking for, just something that's open to the south. It doesn't have to be perfectly south-facing. It can be southeast, southwest. It can even be east and west, but we have to account for that when we give the proposal. But we're looking for something that doesn't have a bunch of objects in the way to the south here. We want to be able to see that 4 to 6 to 7 hours of sunlight. And the way that we do that is we'll give you a pre-proposal based on what we can see from the internet. We'll use Google and we'll use Bing and compare the two. But if it's somewhat questionable, you're not just wide open, we have this camera that we have to take and go onto the roof. We'll take a photo of the sky, and it will tell us percentage-wise how much openness, which is the yellow, and how much shade, which is the green, and tell us what your total solar fraction is. As long as that magic number is 80% or better, it's full funding from NYSERDA. If your number happens to come up at 75%, we then take the total incentive amount, whatever that would have been, multiply times 75%. So anything that sees 20% lesser shading at that given spot is full NYSERDA incentive. And then for the snow, for our area, we make the majority of our power in the summer, spring, and fall. You can bank it with a utility company and use it in the winter. Our wintertime production accounts for 5 to 6% of our yearly value. So the sun goes down, the snow comes, we don't make a lot of power. Even in the cloudy times, we make power. On the bright, sunny winter times, we make a bunch of power. But for the given winter months, we don't account for a lot in our proposals. You make it in the spring, summer, and fall, and you'll actually see that on a graph that we provide you. Yep. You don't have to do that. So when we do the snow load of your roof, we'll verify that you can handle the weight of the snow plus the solar panels. So you don't have to go and scrape it all off for that. And you don't have to take it all off thinking you're going to make a lot of solar. You might do well if it's a nice sunny day, but even if it's black, the panels are black, there's a little piece of the panel that's showing, it's going to radiate some of that heat up into the panel when the sun comes out and starts to hit that spot. And when it does that, it'll start to shift the snow towards the bottom of the panel. And eventually it'll shift the snow off like a driveway. In the black pavement, you see it kind of melts quicker than somebody that doesn't have that, or your grass. It's because it's black. It radiates it up there just from normal. It doesn't do it on purpose. No. No, we don't cause any more ice because the ice comes from your losing of the heat through the attic and then the melting of the snow and then refreezing. This actually just kind of slides down, and if it does it well enough, it'll slide it right off your roof and crash down. I don't know if you went over that. But he can tell you his experience with snow if you want to ask him questions at the end. But it can come crashing down, so it doesn't just go a little bit and then stick. Yeah. So this, you don't have to go up there and take all the snow off. It's not going to hinder us in our production. We know it comes. We know it comes every year, so we account for the snow. I think that was the last one. Is there any questions on any of the stuff? Yes? For heat? Solar thermal would be more of your option for that somewhat, but then it works great in the summer, spring, and fall when you kind of don't need the heat, and a little bit less in the winter. So for heating purposes, it can work, but it's not going to work the greatest. Solar PV Yeah, if you do electric, but then you're chewing up all your credits and all your kilowatts to try and make electric heat, which isn't as efficient, a solar thermal might be able to help if you use evacuated tubes. Anything else? Yeah. Wait. Yes.
I don't know if you're planning on doing this, but I'm wondering about the three different types of panels, particularly the third one. I didn't understand what the difference was. When you presented earlier.
The first two types, the only difference is the manufacturer.
Right.
And then the third type was the microinverter is the difference.
Is it something about AC?
It's a BenQ AC module, so you're actually sending AC off of your roof and down. The only difference is the manufacturers, but the biggest difference is between the three options is the Solarize versus microinverter. And we can go over that, and if you do a site assessment, I can show you all three and what the differences are, but yeah. Yes? Yep. You can have a standby generator. Depending on what it is and how it's wired, we have a lot of homes with standby generators and solar. Yes. Through the one design of the lease program, it's a 20-year lease, so at the end, you can have them remove them for free. They'll take them away, and then you can go for a new system. If you buy a system, they're going to still last 30-plus years. So my kids' next business will be some way to take these panels from customers, do something with them, recycle them. So that business, I'm sure, is going to be coming. So I'll push my son into that version of it to recycle the panels, but we will need something like that eventually down the road. Yep. Does anyone know any more about that? Yeah, so he'll go over his slides, and we can take more questions at the end. I'll be here, and I have another guy, Rich, here, so we can answer all the questions that you might have, and we'll stick around until the last person leaves. But next up.
Okay, can you? Is that working? Okay. So my name's Chris Carrick. I manage the energy program at the Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board, which is a public agency that serves 5 counties in Central New York. We coordinate a variety of different programs for NYSERDA, doing outreach and education workshops like this for all of NYSERDA programs. We also receive funding from various federal agencies, including the Department of Energy. You may have noticed on the slide there's a little graphic here powered by the Department of Energy. This is a program that is helping to reduce what's called the soft costs of solar, which are all the non-component costs. So Justin went over all of the components, but there's other aspects that go into that final price of what you'll pay for solar, including labor costs and costs of permitting, and also costs of marketing. So how many folks do people like Justin have to talk to before they can get a contract signed? A program like this really helps because we're feeding him a lot of referrals and saving him a lot of time. So that's one of the aspects of why we're involved as a public agency in this very interesting grassroots project. There's a fact sheet that's available. Those soft costs are now actually 60% or more of the final cost of your solar system. And so in trying to make solar more competitive with grid power, addressing those soft costs through programs like this are really going to help us move that cost curve down. And I'll show you in a minute what the costs on the hardware components have been doing over the last few years. But just quickly, how much solar resource is available to us? This shows natural reserves of fossil fuels and uranium over here, and then annual resource capability of some renewable energy resources, all compared to global energy use, which is 16 terawatts, which is the equivalent of having 16 billion 100-watt bulbs running all at the same time, just for point of reference. So people ask, how many years of coal do we have left, or natural gas? What is hydrofracking doing to our natural gas supply? I think all those questions are somewhat moot because this shows you how much solar resource we have on a yearly basis. So by far, it's the largest available energy source we have. Enough sun falls on the Earth in 1 minute to provide all of our global energy needs. So the trick, of course, is harvesting and using that solar power in an efficient way. Part of that is the efficiency of the panels that we went over. But there's other ways of generating or using solar power, like solar hot water or passive solar, to maximize your solar gain in the winter and minimize it in the summer. But again, we're talking about solar electric here only in this program right now. And the first question I always get is solar really viable in central New York? And the question is absolutely. We do have enough sun, solar resource available to make it work. That's only one factor in what makes solar economical. So how much sun do you have? What are you paying now for your electricity? Because you're going to offset that with solar. And then what kind of incentives can you get up front to reduce that upfront cost? But here, this National Renewable Energy Lab map shows you the amount of sun that's available in Germany and Spain, two of the world's leaders in how much solar has been installed. Germany, in fact, has about a quarter of all the solar power installed in the world is in Germany. And you see their solar resources equivalent to Alaska or perhaps Seattle. So far less than what we have even here in upstate New York. This just shows in terms of kilowatt hours per square meter per year. So you have a given amount of space, how much solar power can that space generate in a year? And comparing places like San Diego, very sunny, to Syracuse, to Seattle, and to the sunniest place in Germany. So again, you see, we've got a lot more sun than Germany. In fact, people are blown away when I tell them we've got about 3/4 of the sun available for solar as they do in San Diego. So you might not know it on a day like today, but in terms of what your solar panels like to see, it's true. So the solar market is exploding. You may be aware of this already, but this graph on the left shows the growth in the market over time and then projections moving forward. Really just exponential, astronomical growth. This donut chart here on the right shows what are the utilities installed to make electricity, those big solar farms, in the first quarter of this year. Look at this, almost 3/4 of it was solar power. So this is not just a good deal for homeowners and small businesses, as we've been talking about, but also the utilities are recognizing this. Here's just a chart of the top 10 solar states in the country. Now you see California here is number 1. They're by far the largest state. They have their own legend here on the chart you can see of what was installed in the first quarter of 2014. We rank number 8, both in the first quarter, but also cumulatively, we rank number 8. So that's pretty good, but I think we can do a lot better to catch up to places like Massachusetts and New Jersey, some of our neighbors that aren't known for how much sun they get either. We've got some great incentives. I'm going to talk about those in a minute, but New York has made a big commitment in terms of public resources, subsidies going into growing the solar market, and I think we can all be happy about that. What have we done here in central New York? We've got about 520-something solar systems in the 5 counties that my agency represents. You can see here that Onondaga County is the largest, but it's somewhat underperforming its share of the population of our region. What's interesting to me is that Madison County here, shaded in this gray sort of color, is overperforming in terms of their population. That's because we ran a Solarize Madison program similar to this in 2012 and 2013, which, as was mentioned before, tripled the amount of solar installed in the county. What's been done in central New York? Again, you see astronomical growth over the recent years. We have just over 8 megawatts of solar installed in 5 counties. In our territory, Syracuse, DeWitt, Manlius, and Onondaga, for this program, we have about 1.2 megawatts. So that's 1,200 kilowatts of systems, just to give you a sense of what's been done so far. This is all being driven by a dramatic drop in prices, driven mostly by the panels themselves. We may have read about Chinese panels being imported. We have a Chinese option in our program. And that's been really driving prices down and driving the market up. You see in these stacked bars. And same thing here in Central New York. From 2008, when I started working with the planning board, it was about $10 a watt, now to just over $4 a watt. And again, our program now is at $3.25 a watt, so somewhere down here. Now, the question comes up, should I wait? If the prices keep coming down, am I better off waiting until next year? The answer is no, because the incentives are coming down with the prices. That's how New York has managed its program, so they don't want to waste public resources giving you too much subsidy. So they're watching the market, seeing how many people apply for those grants through Justice Company and others, and they're bringing the incentives down with it. There's also an opportunity cost if you wait. Right, there'll be the electricity you could have been generating between now and next year or 2 years. So, lots of you are here because you care about the environment. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but it's obviously a great way to reduce fossil fuel emissions. But economics today are a great reason for solar, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. There's a fact sheet that summarizes this. It provides more detail on these 10 reasons, so feel free to pick that up. On the environmental side, real quick, one way to think about environmental impact of any energy source is the life cycle assessment, or life cycle emissions. Everything from the mining of the resource to the generating of the power to what happens at disposal. So solar has about 40 grams of CO2 equivalent per every kilowatt hour that's produced. Now compare that to coal, which is 1,000 grams. So just orders of magnitude less greenhouse gas impact using solar power than coal power. This graph just shows a variety of different energy sources. Solar over here, coal up here, oil, natural gas. That's also a very high global warming impact. But even if you don't accept the science of climate change, or your relatives are going to give you a hard time, tell them there's plenty of other environmental reasons to go solar. Just looking at public health impacts of coal power. We use very little coal power to generate electricity in New York. It's like 5% or less. But we suffer all that Midwestern coal pollution that comes over, drifts over, and falls on us. So there was a study that came out in 2010. We ranked third in premature deaths, almost 1,000 people every year. So a tremendous, public health, but also economic impact from using coal power. Now I mentioned, electricity. What do you pay? That's one of the factors. We pay a lot. I don't have to tell you that. We rank third or fourth highest electricity prices. So every kilowatt hour you make from your solar panels is one you don't have to buy from National Grid. I did some analysis looking at grid electricity prices over the last several years. You can see lots of fluctuation. You may remember those big spikes we had last winter when our electricity bills went up about 50% in February and March. But the trend line is what's interesting. Over 4% per year increasing. So again, if you put solar on today, you're locking in that price you're going to pay for 20 years or 25 years, right? Because the solar is free. It's a free resource. So that's a great, for folks on a fixed income or anybody really, to provide some peace of mind.
Question?
Yes.
One company that visited us said that there's a 1.9% raise if you lease
Yes.
each year.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a raise?
There may be what's called an escalator in your lease payment, depending on your particular proposal. I'm going to show you what they provided me, and there was no escalator, but Justin can talk to you about that after. It's going to add to the value of your home. That's another great economic benefit. Research out of California shows that solar homes sell faster and for a premium. Okay, so we're a little behind California, as I showed before, but I think this is where the market is going. People are going to want that security of knowing what their utility what their electric bills are going to be moving forward. It's a great investment for business. This is a project that Justin's company did out in Clinton. They had a great 4-year payback. That's phenomenal. Most homes that are getting proposals in our program are seeing paybacks around 7 to 10 years. It's good for economic development. The market, as I said, is growing from $2 billion industry to over $12 billion today. And that's growing jobs along the way. Most people don't know solar now employs more people than the coal industry. What I like about programs like this is that, as Jessica mentioned, you now become a solar ambassador. You talk to your friends and neighbors about your project and makes them more likely to go solar. So there's this full effect in the community that I think is really exciting. So, NYSERDA. Most of you are probably familiar with the New York State Energy Research Development Authority. It's been around since the first oil crisis in the 70s. Since 2003, they've given out about 10,000 grants for homeowners and small businesses who've done solar projects. So they've got a lot of history in this area. Their program currently offers a $1 per watt incentive up to the first 50 kilowatts, and then after that it's 60 cents a watt, up to 200 kilowatts. Now, most of you may be homeowners. Remember, you'll be capped at 25 kilowatts, so you'll get that full $1 a watt. But that's going to go down, I expect, pretty soon. So we want to make sure we get everyone enrolled in the program as quickly as possible. The incentives go to the installer. So you won't expect to get a check from NYSERDA, and the incentive is passed along to you in the final cost. That makes it easier. It's just all behind the scenes. Justin's company does all the paperwork for you, so really it just makes it a lot easier, I think. And it's more than just a grant. We mentioned there's a delay in NYSERDA approval of the systems. That's because they're doing a quality check. So it's another round of check beyond the building permit, electrical permit, and utility interconnection. NYSERDA is also looking at these projects to make sure they are good projects. That's correct. I'm going to get there right now. So here's a summary of all the available incentives, okay? There's the 30% federal tax credit for homeowners or businesses. No cap on that, but it's going to expire or go down actually to 10% at the end of 2016. So that's another reason not to wait. In New York, we have an income tax credit as well, 25% for homeowners only, and that's up to $5,000. Okay? Both of those tax credits are applied on your income tax, so there's a period of waiting. You'll have to pay Justin the balance of your project after the NYSERDA grant. We do have a 0% bridge loan available for you to deal with that cash flow issue. So you can borrow the money at 0%. When you get your tax return, then you pay back that 0% loan. Yes, so our understanding of the IRS guidelines is that if you need to limit free, do a roof upgrade on a portion of your roof, those costs can be folded into your federal tax credit along with the solar system itself. You want to consult your tax attorney to be sure about that. That's our interpretation. The tax credits are applied after the grant. I'll show you that in a minute, how that works. We also have a state sales tax exemption. So all the components Justin buys are exempt on the state sales tax. That reduces costs for us in New York. We do have a local sales tax exemption option. So Onondaga County, if the legislators were so inclined, could also have a tax exemption on the panels and components that Justin buys. They haven't done that yet, so we could perhaps galvanize all of us to write letters and educate them about that. That would be great. But we do have a property tax exemption. So even though the solar is going to add to the value of your home, as I showed you that California research shows, there's a 15-year exemption. So you don't have to worry about getting socked with a big assessment if you add $20,000 of panels to your house. That's a great benefit. And then the net metering, available in New York but not everywhere, so that's a nice benefit here. You get that full one-to-one rate, retail rate, for the solar power you're borrowing, you're lending to National Grid. So here's a screenshot of the quote that I received early on in this program from Justin's company. It's a 7 kilowatt system roughly, the Trina system, the 355 per watt. Again, we're now at 325, okay? It's going to offset almost all my electrical usage. So the upfront cost is $25,000 and change. You take off the NYSERDA rebate, okay? That's my new basis for my tax credits, 18 and change, okay? The state tax credit is 25% of the 18. The federal tax credit is 30% of the 18. So my out-of-pocket cost now is $8,000 and change, or roughly 30% of that first price, okay? So that's obviously a tremendous incentive to make these affordable. The grant doesn't. That's up front. Again, it goes to the installer, and they just pass it on in the bill, okay? The tax credits, you have to wait until April or whenever you file your taxes. Okay? So here...
When you mentioned $19 as the new utility bill,
right.
Does that include your gas usage too?
This is just electric. We're just looking at electric here, okay? So my utility bill is really my electric bill now is $95 a month. My new bill will be $17, that basic charge Justin talked about, plus a little power I may buy from grid. So I'm saving over $75 a month. Over 25 years, I'm going to save $22,000, or a return on my investment of 12%. Far better than the stock market's been doing historically, with very, very little risk. So it's a great return. Now, this is the old price, right? I recalculated this based on the new price, and my return was about 14%. My payback was about 7 years. So until year 25 or whenever I replace my panels, I have free electricity. Roughly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, who knows what the technology and the grants and everything. I mean, you know, in 25 years, I imagine the panels will be, without any incentive, will be competitive with grid power. That's where we're going. Right. I don't expect that in the short or medium term at all. National Grid is very committed to solar power. It helps them because they don't have to pay for new transmission lines, right? You're producing power where it's needed, or new fossil fuel generation plants are expensive, right? So it's a good investment for them at this point. People talk about a death spiral for utilities as more people get off grid power and start producing their own power. We're a long way from that. Right now, solar power is less than 1% of their peak power generation, right? So when we get to 20% or 30%, we'll have that conversation, but we're a long way. So there are loans available. I'm not going to go over this because we're running out of time. I want to respect people's time on a weekend here. We'll be here after. There's written information about this. The bottom line is there are affordable rates, 3.5% through NYSERDA if you want to buy your system and finance it. There are also leasing options available for little or no money down, okay, through Justin's company. I'll show you what the lease option looks. Same system, spec'd out. I had a small upfront payment, about $2,000, okay. My lease payment, or my monthly solar bill, so to speak, is $68. My National Grid bill stays the same. So my total electricity bill is $87. So I'm saving less on a monthly basis, but I put less money up front. That basically means my return for me worked out the same, 12%. And again, at the lower price, it would be closer to 14% return. What's interesting for me, comparing apples to apples, is the cost per kilowatt hour. So the solar power I generate is less than 10 cents a kilowatt hour, if you worked out the math. Right now, we're all paying about 13.5 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's a great bargain today. Solar power is not 5 years from now, 10 years from now in New York. It's good today. These are just some summary of points we've made throughout. Again, these slides are available on solarizesyracuse.org. Feel free to go refer to those. Call us. Go to the website. A lot of great information is there. I do have to just mention efficiency quickly. Not everyone's going to be a good fit for solar. Your house may be too shady. So you should be thinking about what can I do to reduce my electricity consumption and save money that way, reduce pollution. Even if you are a good fit for solar, you want to reduce your electricity needs so you don't have to buy as many panels, right? So do those CFLs, do those Energy Star appliances, get an energy audit from NYSERDA. It's free. For most homeowners, unless you earn twice the median income in the county, you can get a free energy audit. Comprehensive. The contractor will come out and do a blower door test, look at how leaky your house is, try to seal up those leaks, insulation, new furnace, whatever you need. They'll give you a report with an estimate of costs and paybacks. It's a great opportunity to learn about your house and how your mechanical systems work and so forth. So I recommend you do that. If you fill out the application, I can take it. I'll be happy to stick around and take that and submit it for you. Also, small businesses. If you have 10 or fewer employees, you can get a free energy audit as well. So some of you may know folks who own small businesses. Let them know in New York you can get a free energy audit as well. Yes, sir. There isn't. I understand from Justin's company that you can go 100, 200 feet away without significant loss because of the size of the wires that they use. Very little drop. Okay, so here's the summary wrap-up. What's next? What's your to-do list? The first item's checked off. You've come today. You've gotten your education. You've started the process. Again, lots more information on our website. Call us if you have questions. But sign that enrollment card. Okay, it's no obligation. You're not committing to buy anything. You're just saying you'd like Justin's company to come out and look at your site, do their shade analysis, and see if you're a good fit. Yes, sir. A few days a week. We've been getting slammed with all the great response, so they're working their way through the list, but it won't be long. Yes, ma'am.
So you don't need our energy bill until you receive it?
Well, if you give that to us today and you have your bill, we'll take it. We'd be happy to. Well, some people have been bringing the bills because they know we've asked for them, because we've said it on the website. If you don't, that's fine. We'll get your bill sooner or later. The biggest thing for you to decide is, does it make economic sense for me? Right? You're going to get the full quote from Justin. It's going to give you all that information. What's my payback and so forth. Help us spread the word. Again, this is all grassroots. You know, I'm a paid employee, but everyone else is doing this the goodness of their heart. So help us spread the word. Like us on Facebook, all that good stuff. Tell your friends and neighbors. It's not too late. Until the end of the month, you can enroll on the website. This is our last workshop, but you can still enroll on the website. Here's our contact information. Again, more information outside on the literature table. I'm just going to let Jessica maybe say a couple words if you need to. But thank you so much for coming. Again, we'll be here. Anyone with a name tag can answer questions. So let's just let Jessica wrap up here quickly.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for coming out this afternoon and spending some of your Saturday with Solarize Syracuse. I just want to quickly thank Natur-Tyme for offering this space. They let us use this space for free, and it's a great thing that they provide the community. So thank you to Natur-Tyme. If you, again, just leave your enrollment forms in the box in the back. If you brought your electricity bill, we'll staple it to the card so we know who you are. And I think that's it. So thank you all again for coming. Check out our website, solarizeSyracuse.org.